Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I have asked my readers over the last few months to suggest titles for me that they think would be fascinating reads, and I've begun that journey, and I started with Starship Troopers, which I have previously reviewed, particularly in comparing it with this film. And today I'd like to talk to you about a novel that's really quite fascinating and very much out of the mainstream, and that would be A Canticle for Leibowitz. Now, A Canticle for Leibowitz can be found on Amazon or anywhere else under science fiction, and even under the subcategory of post-apocalyptic fiction. But realistically, A Canticle for Leibowitz, written in 1965 by Walter Miller Jr., is literature. And literature is the kind of story that is going to go very deep into the characters, the underlying issues, and the big themes of the story. It's not necessarily going to be very heavy on plot and kind of things that would move a story along at a rapid fire pace. So it is a very different kind of book. But I encourage you to consider A Canticle for Leibowitz because it is remarkably thought-provoking. So very briefly, just to give you a setup for what we're looking at. This is a story that takes place in the Southwest 600, 1200, and 1800 years after a nuclear apocalypse. Everything is situated through the point of view of this small abbey of the Order of Leibowitz, which will eventually become Saint Leibowitz. And you can go into the details in the story to learn about Mr. Harry Leibowitz and why he might become a saint. But it takes us through a period of time, 600 years after this apocalypse, where we're basically in the Dark Ages. Think 1,000 years ago. We then go 600 years beyond that. Think the rise of machines, the rise of warfare, using machines, think maybe 17th, 18th century. And then we finally finish with civilization having been reborn, brought back to its great heights. It's exploring in space and also possibly on the brink of repeating history. So 3 stories set at these very disparate times. And we begin in part 1 with Brother Francis, who is a very young man, 17 years old, learning how to become a monk. And he comes across, in the desolate Southwest here, he comes across the remains of a fallout shelter. He's able to go in there and discover some artifacts. And these artifacts might be a revelation about history that may change the way that the church looks at history and possibly Mr. Leibowitz. And the story takes us through Brother Francis and his struggle with his faith, his struggle to become a devout member of his order, and to understand his kind of place in things. And that's sort of the opening where we begin. Let me lay this out right away so we understand where we're coming from here. If you like your science fiction moving along, this book isn't for you. If you like your science fiction to be heavily plot driven, this book is not for you. If you like a lot of humor in your science fiction, this book is not for you. This is literature. There are big concepts here. The ever ongoing battle between science and religion, the faith and what that means. There are big ideas about humanity in here, and that's really what literature is about, dealing with the big ideas. This is not a book where you're going to have a character who takes you all the way through and you get to see that arc. So this is a very different kind of book. Now, this book engages in all kinds of debates on matters of religion, on matters of politics and the state, and science, of course. And I want to just read you a brief passage that really kind of illustrates sort of the debates that go on. We are in the latter part of the story here where there is a debate going on about where mankind has come and where it might be headed. And here is the response. Are we doomed to do it again and again and again? Have we no choice but to play the phoenix in an unending sequence of rise and fall? Assyria, Babylon, Egypt, Greece, Carthage, Rome, the empires of Charlemagne and the Turk, ground to dust and plowed with salt. Spain, France, Britain, America, burned into the oblivion of the centuries, and again and again and again. Are we doomed to it, Lord, chained to the pendulum of our own mad clockwork, helpless to halt its swing? This time it will swing us clean to oblivion, he thought. These moments of great introspection are moments that are very relevant for today's world. Are we doomed as a people to keep repeating the cycle of our own mistakes, even amid these times when it seems like we are accomplishing so many great things? These are the kinds of things you will experience in the story. Now, this is not to say that there are not emotional moments, because there's a huge emotional gut punch at the end of the first book. That really kind of left me reeling and wondering if I wanted to go on actually with the story. But this is the type of book that will stay with you. The issues that this brings up, it allows you to contemplate, to meditate about big things. And it's probably not the type of book that you want to read one after the next after the next. You want to have some kind of light reading in between. But I think as a stopping point to kind of pull it back, to look at the big picture, A Canticle for Leibowitz is a great choice. And I do encourage you to give it a try. If you like to be challenged, if you like to leave a book thinking and pondering big questions, then this is going to be a good option for you indeed. So, at any rate, take my advice. Don't. If you have thoughts about the book, or you've read it, please leave them in the comments below. This was a very short review, didn't really get into many details, so I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, bye-bye.